With the ups and downs of the market recently, a lot of people are asking things such as, what do I do with my money? Well, what better way to start talking about that than to really address 5 different ways that you can maximize your 401k retirement dollars. Let's talk through that and make sure you're doing the right things with your dough. One of the best ways to do that is to consider the Roth side of the 401k. Now, I know you're thinking, well, why is that? Because I'm going to retire in a lower tax bracket, and that's oftentimes the argument for why to do pre-tax dollars instead of Roth dollars. Though I've yet to meet one retiree that's not wishing they had more Roth dollars, because you don't pay taxes on the withdrawal. You avoid required minimum distributions. But above all, let's just take this scenario into perspective and really start to consider things. Let's say that you invest $10,000 annually for 30 years. With a 7% return, that would be just over $1 million. The total invested would be $300,000. So let's say you're in a 20% tax bracket. If you were in a 20% bracket, that means you would have paid $60,000 in taxes. Now, what if you retired in a 15% bracket and you have the $1 million? Well, sure, you're not going to withdraw it all at once. And yes, RMDs or required minimum distributions could push you into an even higher bracket at times. But if we just went simple with simple numbers here, we would say that, let's say you're in a 15% bracket. Well, that's $150,000 in taxes paid on the $1 million instead of $60,000. Now, there is the argument for the sake of things of you could say, well, what if I instead took the tax savings and saved those dollars? That's one for a financial planner for you to actually dive in, because I've done a video on that prior, depending on your situation, but it is one to consider. But if you are looking at this just apples to apples and you're saying, well, I'm not going to save the extra tax savings and instead I'm going to blow that money, then you should truly consider doing the Roth 401k so that you don't have more tax that you are going to pay in the long term. Number 2, don't delay starting the investing. Now, I know that's just such a standard old school thing to say. People are like, well, compound interest is your best friend. Well, let's just look again at a scenario of this. Let's just say that you're starting out, you're making $100,000 a year, and you contribute 4% to your 401k, and your employer contributes 4%. That's $8,000 annually, and you do this for 30 years with a 7% return. That's $808,584. Well, if you did this only for 20 years with the same 7% return, now you would need to invest $18,433 annually to still have that same amount of $808,584. But if you started and you only had 10 years to go, then you would actually have to invest $54,694. So really, it's all about getting started now and jumping in and building the dough. Number 3 is one that I get from a lot of older clients who maybe change jobs and they're like, I don't know if I'm going to participate in the 401k just because I have all of this other money here. And I always tell them this, and that is, do not turn down free dollars. If the company is going to match 4%, then do the 4%. Does it mean that you need to do extra dollars? Absolutely not, especially if your retirement plan is met or you have a different strategy that you're working on, such as maybe maxing out a Roth IRA elsewhere. But the free dollars should always be taken because that is free money. Number 4, don't fear a down market. According to Kiplinger, I believe that's how you say it. Correct me in the comments if not. Every 4 years and 8 months, the market goes down 10% or more. So you have to expect that these things are going to happen. The idea here is you want to make sure that your 401k is positioned in a way that is fitting what your needs or goals are. When it comes to retirement, yes, if you're close to retirement, you may not be 100% in the stock market, but you may not be 100% bonds either. It depends on where you're going to be pulling dollars from first. I've made a lot of different videos on the strategy that I like and talking about having different buckets, and you have a conservative bucket and a growth bucket. Obviously, they're diversified, each of them. But if the market does fall, you're pulling from the conservative bucket because those dollars aren't down near as much. If the market is up, you're pulling from the growth bucket and working off of those too. So just make sure that you're not making the wrong decision with that. And that leads me to number 5, which is also don't be foolish. If you're wanting to try to play catch up and you're right near the retirement years, and there is the possibility of a market downturn, don't try to just chase, let's say, the NASDAQ or open a brokerage link, which Fidelity, multiple different companies offer within a 401k where you can buy individual stocks, and try to be a day trader or a stock trader, because these are things that could potentially set you up for disaster if you're needing those dollars in the near future. Or even if you're a younger person, it could definitely cost you if you were investing in, let's just say, one individual stock and that stock falls completely apart. We want to make sure that you're doing the right thing things with your dollars. So that's 5 typical tips that we're going through. As I'd said, let me know in the comments on Kiplinger if I pronounced that correctly, but if you have some other thoughts, let me know below.